here we are, guys. I'm here to welcome one of my favorite authors and influencers that I would respect.
Influencer, yeah.
Exactly. But, the name influencer now gets
Yeah,
laughed at, but you are the
true.
original
Yeah.
influencer.
For
Yeah.
good or for good or for bad. But yeah, I've been here the longest, that's for sure.
But the word influence shouldn't be a bad word, should it? It's just that
I,
the bad people have made it.
yeah. Agreed. The connotation of that to me is a bad one, but I know exactly what you mean. So
Exactly. So I've read probably not all your books, I think, but I've not been alive that long. It takes a long time to read some of them, especially
yeah.
the woman's book I read,
Yep.
the protein book. And I think the first book I read of yours was actually The Ultimate Diet
2.0.
2.0.
Yep.
And of course, we're similar age. I'm
Yep.
53. So we've been around a little bit. So, of course, I looked into other diets. I never did see a Body Opus back in the day. I know you
Oh,
referenced
really?
that. No, I never came across, because I never had the steroid handbook either of Dan Duchesne. I had a different, like almost a plagiarized version of his. I don't know who wrote that, but it must have been one that come out
There
afterwards.
were there were a couple. So I actually got somebody sent me I actually had the original Ultimate Steroid Handbook and the USH2. Somebody sent me the first one. Bill Phillips wrote his anabolic reference guide, and basically he just copied what was in the
That
Ultimate
might be
Steroid
the one
Handbook.
that I
Yeah,
had.
it's a
I
little
ordered
black
it
little
out of a
black book.
newspaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little book.
Yep, that was Bill Phillips, and he basically copied Ultimate Steroid Handbook word for word. Dan had a bunch, he was always ahead of the curve. This was the 1980s, and he released that. They released the original Ultimate Diet with Michael Zampano. It's a little book called Ultimate Muscle Mass, the USH1, USH2, USH2 addendum, which I don't have. And they were just these little booklets that were
Yeah, this
photocopied
was
and
a small
stapled,
book.
right? And you ordered them, you sent like $4.99 in, and they would mail you the book. And some of it, I mean, it represented the knowledge of the day. Like we can look back now and go, yeah, this is wrong, but nobody like that. They were figuring out through trial and error. There was no science, there's no research. They were just like, let's see what this does.
Well,
And he was right
there was
there in the
a diet in
trenches.
that book actually called the high low carb diet, which I
Yeah,
remember
that's Bill
doing.
Phillips. That's Bill Phillips' book. Yep, because I have it and I know exactly that. Yep, you're right.
Because one of the days there was half an apple you could
Yep,
have,
yep.
and I did that diet. Of course, it was very similar.
As did I. Yep.
And I was only 20 at that time, 21, so it was about
Okay.
1994 when I actually
Yeah.
tried it. Because everybody
Yep.
was doing Atkins there. I remember Jennifer Aniston was having Atkins breath
Yeah, yeah. Keto
uh,
breath.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So I
And
tried it, but I wasn't trying to lose weight
sure.
back in 1994, which I thought you did Atkins to lose weight. But of course, progression onwards, I studied the ultimate, no, the anabolic diet, rather, as
Yep.
you know.
Keep us quality. Yep.
Yeah, and I've read a lot of his books, probably
Yep.
before I knew about yours, because he's came out first, didn't he, in
He
1995?
was, yeah, he was in the generation before me. He originally started as sort of a steroid expert and then moved into training and nutrition later. Like the anabolic diet was actually when I was in college. That would have been early 90s. And he actually, this was just the history of this was the Vince McMahon, who runs professional wrestling, World Wrestling Federation, but now the
Mm.
WWE, wanted to start a bodybuilding federation called the WBF, the World Bodybuilding Federation. And he wanted to make it like pro wrestling. Everybody would have a theme song and a personality and showmanship. And he
Mm.
decided to drug test it. And as my exercise physiology professor, a guy named Eric Sternlicht, told me, the anabolic diet was really created to try to get the drugs out of their system.
Right.
And the thing is, if you look at the results, everybody looked terrible on stage. Everyone, like Dan called it the high fatter diet because nobody was in shape.
Right.
And this is when Dan really recognized. He goes, it was then same thing. The Olympia tested one year and everybody looked terrible. It's like people had forgotten how to train and diet without drugs. He said that it was covering up so many mistakes. But
Really, even
regardless,
as early as the 90s, they'd
oh
already.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's why they stopped testing because no one of the pros could get into shape. They didn't know how anymore. And so yeah, the anabolic diet was that's when I was finishing college. So that was like 91, 92. Body Opus would come out in 95, 96, Dan
Right.
Duchesne's original book. My first book was 1998. So I was kind of, and my book derived directly from my experience with the Body Opus diet. So
What's your
like,
first book? The ketogenic diet.
correct, that was
Yeah.
1998.
Yeah, that's about the only book I haven't read for saying I'm the
You're not
keto
missing
guy.
anything.
And I haven't read it.
It's great for insomnia. It's very boring. It's very technical. It's like the women's book. It was not a first book. It was what had happened. So at the time, right, the cyclical ketogenic diet, which is like a modified Atkins diet, had gotten popular, and it went so against the nutrition beliefs of the day, which was still high carb, low fat. It was still
Yeah.
1980s, Chris Aceto, that type of stuff. And here comes Dan and Di Pasquale going, look, no, we're going to do 5 days of low carb, high fat into a carb load. Everyone's like, this is bogus. This can't possibly work. I was bored and I decided I would try it. And I started doing, they're called the Body Opus Diaries, and they're kind of
Right.
lost to history. They're out there somewhere on the internet, just keeping a weekly record of what I was doing and what happened and what I was experiencing. And people seemed to like it. And this is like early internet. Nobody knew it, and I was just the first guy on there. And people seemed to like it. And then because you can only write, didn't eat carbs for 5 days, ate all the carbs. Like I started looking at the research because I started getting really interested in it. And I'd become friends with Dan. I'd get to go visit him in San Diego, and that was an insane 3 days. And that would eventually lead to me to my first book. Because what I saw was we had the traditional nutritionist who was like, this will kill you, and they're wrong. Then we had the zealots who were like, this is a magic diet. I'm like, well, actually,
Yeah.
the truth
Yeah.
always lies. So I'm like, look, here's the science. Here's what the science says, for good or for bad. Like, and people for years were like, you're the keto guy. That's all you. I'm like, no, 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 no. Go read it. In 325 pages, I never say you should do a ketogenic diet. There's not a word in there. What I said was, if you've chosen to do it, here's what you need to know. But and it was funny, the anti-keto people hated me because I didn't say the diet was evil, and the pro-keto people hated me because I
So
didn't say it was magic, because they can't grasp the
so it's
concept
a bit
that
like you and failure, that the high volume hate you and the failure people, and you've never
you
recommended
can't
either.
you can't win when you're dealing with zealots. You can't. But the
Yeah.
truth always lies in the middle, for diet, for training. Like, people at either extreme never like, because I'm like, well, it depends. Like, it depends on context, whether low carb, high. Now, for me, getting back to Body Opus, it worked real well for me, but here's why. It wasn't because ketosis is magic. It wasn't because the structure of the diet was magic. It was because at the time in my life, I have trouble eating moderate carbohydrates. If I eat some, I want more.
Right.
So a diet that said you can have none or you can have all of them fit me both psychologically and physiologically. And that's a big part of when I program diets and consultations. What is right for the person?
Well,
Some
that is a
people,
bit like magic, though, to be fair,
well,
because you
and
can have both.
sure. Well, yeah. But if there's a advantage for a lot of people, it's that it makes calorie control easier. I was able to eat lower calories on the low carb days because when you can't eat any, you don't start, and if you don't start, you don't continue. And then on the weekends, I could fulfill those desires and
I mean,
eat,
there's definitely a more satiating effect on keto days, for
for
sure.
for
For
some
sure.
people, yes, and for others, no. It really depends on the person.
Yeah.
And even that, like, I have found over the years, I've probably gotten more feedback on ketogenic diets than any human being alive, because people always email me. And what I found is some people feel terrible on high carbs. They get bloated, they get sleepy, they 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 love low carb diets. They feel euphoric, they feel energized, their training improve. Like, they don't, like, if they eat carbs, they just want to take a nap. Probably because they're
Yeah.
insulin resistant. Whatever, that's usually what's
But
going
that
on.
was me when I was about 40.
Yes. And there's another group of people that feels great on high carbs. And on a low carb diet, they feel terrible. No matter how long they stay on it, they never adapt. They never get used to it.
Guess
And
that's
then
the
there's
taller, skinnier fellas as well.
and also even Dan wrote about this. He wrote this article in Muscle Media 2000 years ago, and he said, look, a majority of bodybuilders have gotten in shape on high carb diets, but those guys have genetic advantages. They tend to be naturally insulin sensitive. You've got the drug issue, you've got the training, the sheer muscle mass. He goes, but that's not most people, right? When you have some, and yeah, they feel like shit on low carb, so they're like, those diets suck. Yeah, they suck for them.
Yeah.
But for people who feel terror, and then there's a group of people that seem to be able, I can eat high carbs, low fat and feel fine. I've been doing this for so long. If I want to do low carb, it takes me 2 days and I'm fine. And that's something else I've seen. When people start keto diets, and you may have gone through this when you first started, like, so you probably don't remember, it was so many years ago, right? Like the first couple of weeks, you don't feel good. It takes a little while. Your brain is having to adapt. There's enzymatic
I had
changes
some heart
to get,
palpitations.
yeah, like, but then everything, once you get past that initial adaptation, everything's great. And what I found is that once you do that first run of adaptation, where you get through the hard bit, you can eat high carbs for 2 years. And if you go back to low carb, there's some there. This is totally anecdotal. I've seen no science. There is some permanent adaptation that hangs around because you don't go through that keto flu phase a second time.
Every time, yeah.
Yeah.
I know when
Or at least it's faster.
ketones as well, that I've done 500 grams of carbs on the Saturday, 500 on the Sunday. Monday morning, 0.5 ketones.
Yeah, there is something, again, it hasn't been studied. No one's looked in humans what happens if you do keto and carbs and keto and carbs and keto and carbs. But too many people have reported what you're saying. There is some sort of long-term, even I tested that when I was doing the Body Opus diaries, and I was in like deep ketosis, and at a workout, I ate, half a box of cereal, and 4 hours later, I was still in ketosis. Like,
yeah.
For some reason,
going straight in the muscle. Is that what inspired you to write the Ultimate Diet in 2.0?
So there were a couple reasons behind that. So when Dan released Body Opus, okay, so let's go back. In 1981, Michael Zumpana released the Rebound Diet. An article series I've been looking for 30 years and finally found. It was in Muscle and Fitness of all places. And it was basically a 10-day cycle. You did high volume, low carbs. Then you did a short, like heavy duty type workout to carb load. And then you did
high volume. What do you mean high volume?
Like 20 sets of 20.
Oh, high volume sets. Oh, I see.
Depletion training.
Got you.
Like bodybuilder. Then you would do like a heavy duty workout for the carb to set up the carb load. And then you would do like 2 heavy power workouts, like sets of 5s for growth. And then it worked great. But as Dan wrote in Body Opus, people kept losing fat because the keto was making them eat less. So they retooled it as the Ultimate Diet. Same 10-day cycle, same training, same diet, but aimed specifically at fat loss. Okay, so years pass, 1995 rolls around, Dan writes his book, and it had 3 diets: high carb, low fat, moderate carb, moderate fat, like the zone, like 33, 33, 33, if you remember that from years ago.
Yeah.
And Body Opus, which was 5 days of a ketogenic diet, low carb, high fat, and then a 2-day carb load. And what he did, Monday and Tuesday, he did a tension workout. So like a heavy duty workout split routine at the beginning of the week. And then prior to the carb load, that's where he put a full body depletion workout. And so what his goal was at the time, cell swelling as an anabolic driver was a big thing in the research, even though it was kind of weak at the time. His idea was, don't use heavy weights to stimulate growth. Let's use driving carbs and water to stretch the cell as an anabolic stimulus. So he switched the training around from the original. Yeah. And the more I thought about it and the more I played with it, the more I thought he'd gone down the wrong road. Because we know tension, heavy training will always be more of a growth stimulus than any amount of cell swelling, right?
Yeah,
there is just so, and we also know that doing that glycogen depletion work at the start of the week enhances whole body fat use for fuel. So my initial change was to switch Monday, Tuesday. This is still within Body Opus, was to switch them and go Monday, Tuesday depletion, and then Friday full body heavy duty workout, high tension, heavy weights for the carb load. But then I decided that was still not ideal. I liked the original Ultimate Diet structure, which was depletion, split routine, heavy duty split routine, power split routine, right? And the idea was that tension workout set up growth for the power workout. And we know now that that's actually true. We know that training elevates ribosome activity, which you get a better growth stimulus when you do that, right? And they didn't know why it worked. But anyway, but the problem was a 10-day cycle is a complete and utter pain in the ass.
There's only 7 days in a week.
Well, yeah, because what ends up happening is the cycle progresses every week. Like it's Monday to Wednesday and then Thursday to whatever.
Yeah.
Most people, unless you're just a gym rat who has no lunch. So I was like, okay, I'm going to
And you want
find
to
a,
carb load at the weekend.
yeah, exactly. I'm going to find a way to cram this 10-day cycle into 7. So
Mm.
that was the general basis of it. And I did a couple things. So the depletion state is a split routine, right? Monday, Tuesday, because otherwise it's just it can't be completed.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
too much volume. And there were 4 days of low carbs, low calories. That was the keto. That was the fat loss part.
Mm.
Then on Thursday evening, ideally, you did. I took that split routine heavy duty and made it a full body workout because I thought that made to set up for the carb load.
So you had your depletion workouts at the beginning, at the start.
Correct. That
Ah.
enhances fat loss. Then I did a short full body workout Thursday evening, carb load Thursday night and Friday, and then
Mm.
a full body power workout on Saturday when you're full glycogen
Mm.
loaded, anabolic, and then Sunday started with carbs and then gradually. Or some people preferred that they would do 4 straight days of low carbs, Monday, Tuesday depletion, Wednesday, Thursday cardio only, Friday morning, that full body heavy duty, carb load, Saturday power workout. And you can do it. You can train the same muscle group twice, 2 days in a row, as long as the volume's low enough and you're not doing
Yeah.
it all the time. And so basically it was that. I wanted to take the 10-day cycle, compress it into 7, and that was the Ultimate Diet 2.0. And it worked really well. I mean, people who used it got ripped without muscle loss. Some people actually gained a pound or two of muscle over 12 weeks. Because
I remember in your book, though, reading the depletion workouts on Fridays, or am I
no,
just
no, 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 no. That was
wrong?
no, that was Body Opus. That was the
Oh, yeah.
Body Opus. And I probably presented that historically, but the
Right.
way I did it was I flipped it around. And again, to as a concession to a 7-day week, I had to compress the original split heavy duty workout into a full body. And what's
Mm.
funny is, okay, now 20 years later, what are people advocating? Full body 3 times a week. I was
Mm.
there. I don't like it for most applications. What are people, daily undulating periodization where you do 3 different repetition ranges in the same week. You did 20s on depletion, you did 8s on tension, you did 5s on power. The idea of training the same muscle 2 days in a row for
It
better
depends
growth.
on the athlete as well. If you're a bodybuilder,
Oh,
then
sure. Well, yes, and this was aimed at bodybuilders and
yeah.
physique. People physique obsessed, let's put it that way. Now, later, many years later, I wrote an addendum and I was like, here's how a power lifter might apply it. Here's how an Olympic lifter might. It takes a little bit more, there's more machinations involved because training can be so different between
Mm.
systems and Olympic lifting. Here's how an endurance athlete, because I do know powerlifters, I'm sure you do too, that when they carb load, their muscles get full of carbs and water and their leverages improve and they are just strong as all get out on that power workout. So they were able to use it to set up for like a Saturday max out day.
I mean, Pasquale was a powerlifter, wasn't he? He was a good one.
Originally, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean the thing is Dan was very specific with the training, the macros, even the carb load was meticulous. Di Pasquale had none of that. He was just like eat
Yeah,
high
that's the difference
fat,
on
no
mine.
training, and on the carb load, he's just like
Pizza buffet.
eat
That's
whatever you want.
crazy.
He wrote an article in Iron Man magazine, which I could not find, where he wrote a variation on his anabolic diet, where in the middle of the week you ate junk food like Twinkies and snack cakes during a workout to spike insulin. I cannot imagine that going well on leg day
Huh.
because you would see that again. But like Dan was so detail oriented. Di Pasquale couldn't give a damn. He's like, oh, just eat whatever you want on the weekends. Pizza. And we found out the hard way, or I certainly did. You can get away with that for one day. And if you do high carbs, high fat for 2 days, you will backslide. You can regain body
Yeah. See,
fat.
my refeed on a Saturday. I've done Saturday and Sunday. It depends on the
Right.
person.
Sure.
It's mainly white rice, cream of rice
Yeah.
cake.
Yep.
I don't even include bread or wheat in them
Yep.
because they don't stop.
Yep.
Whereas you go out for sushi again. I've got a Chinese wife, so and she owns a
Yeah.
sushi restaurant a month, so we go for sushi.
Yep, exactly. And that was the thing because Dan, like I said, he was meticulous with what carb at what time point. And I did that initially, and then gradually I started slipping, and it was like bread bagels turned
Yeah.
into donuts and fat intake. And for one day, you could get away with it. And by the time we're doing 2 days, you could. So Di Pasquale's similar structure or similar diet approach, but much, much more poorly structured because the
Yeah.
details just weren't there. So anyway,
And
so that's sort of the history. And then that, well, the Ultimate Diet too came after my first ketogenic
yeah,
diet book.
yeah.
And it
Was
was
that
much more
2001, wasn't it?
something like that.
Mm.
Yeah, because it came before Rapid Fat Loss and Flexible, and that was like 2004. So yeah, somewhere around there. And so keto, my ketogenic diet book again was more of a reference book. It didn't present like a specific diet because it addressed what I would call a strict ketogenic diet, where you just stay keto all the time. That's your classic Atkins diet. That's just your any variation of that. Then there was the cyclical ketogenic diet, which was where you alternated usually 5 days of
Mm.
low carb, very low carb, which means 50 grams a day or less. Some use 100, higher fat intake typically with 1 or 2 days of high carbs. That's a cyclical ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
But we then, another idea we presented, because I kept running into this, there are people that need to stay keto all the time, either for food control reasons or health reasons,
Mm.
right? Pre-diabetic, whatever it is, or just preference. And if they're doing a lot of high intensity training, usually weight training, they were having trouble maintaining performance in the weight room.
Mm.
So we needed a way for them to have carbs to support training and recovery without interrupting their being in a ketogenic state. So we came up with what I called in that book the targeted ketogenic.
Did you invent that?
I was certainly involved with it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was there. I mean, like Dan
yeah,
was in the trenches, the steroid
yeah,
trenches of the 80s, and I was in the keto trenches of the
yeah.
90s. Like I was
Because
right
I
there.
use that often as well, and for many clients, they have a rice cake or just a spoon of honey with a bit of
Right.
salt as well.
Yes. And what I would say is like, look, depending on the length of the workout, have like 25 to 50 grams of fast acting carbs,
Mm.
like 30 minutes before. It's
Yeah,
just enough. It gets blood sugar up. It gives you some carbs because we know that during a workout, insulin release is inhibited. The carbs are being used by the muscle, right? They're going. And then they could do an additional 25 to 50 grams immediately after the workout, which we know will get shuttled directly into the muscle immediately.
that's what
And
I did when I trained legs with Dorian. That's
yes, and
exactly
you
what I
you
did.
never so you get the best of both worlds. You can
Mm.
support training, you can get some good recovery, and you never get out of and since you're only eating those foods around the workouts, there's no risk generally of you rolling off the rails and eating too much. And so like it solved a problem. So again, my book and also my book, like I talked about all exercise physiology and I gave sample workouts for beginners, intermediates, the cyclical version, which is maybe what you're thinking of. Like
Mm.
it was a much more general book about if you want to do it, here's what you need to be aware of. Here's the minerals that you need to replace to avoid keto flu.
Got you.
And I got, Atkins book. It was it was based on a lot of really crappy research out of the 60s and 70s. Like there's way more data now.
Yeah, everyone was just going to
But
McDonald's and
right,
throwing
but they're just
pineapple.
like it's like they were eating the worst fats and the worst foods. And actually now
Mm.
in literature, they talk about a healthy ketogenic diet, by which they mean leaner proteins, less saturated fat. It's almost like a Mediterranean keto
Mine's a
diet.
Mediterranean,
Yeah,
although I do have butter. I do like butter.
sure. But it's a matter of degrees, right? Like one of the
Mm.
things in Atkins' book was just the fat fast, which is the dumbest thing ever. They're like they would take pork rinds, which are these high fat. It's like basically imagine pork skin that's been deep fried. They're nasty, like into a chip, like a crisp
Yeah,
form.
I
And
do like pork rind, but I get them they're roasted with no
yeah,
chemicals
but
on.
you would they would dip that in like heavy like
Mayo or something.
yeah. Okay, I knew a guy, this is vile, but I knew a guy at my gym who was following the anabolic diet. And a lot of it we thought at that time you needed high dietary fat, which you really don't when we get into that. He would walk around the gym with a container of mayonnaise, beef jerky, and he would dip it and eat it. It
Mm.
was, I mean, I would make dessert pudding. I would use chocolate protein powder with heavy cream and then add like artificial sweetener and make pudding. And
Well,
yeah, but
when I started keto about 10, 12 years ago, it was you had Jimmy Moore eating all this butter, and you could eat as much calories as you want.
Exactly. And that's just wrong, which is
Calories, I
also,
tell everybody, calories still matter.
well,
It's
which is also why he never lost a pound and his blood lipids were terrible. And when that was pointed out to him, he made every excuse in the book. And it's like, no, keto, Atkins was like, you can eat as much as you want, but most people automatically eat less.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
it's just, which is fine. And that's a trick. But the problem is, go to any keto forum, and there are tons of people going, I'm not losing any weight. Is it
eat
because
more
of my,
fat.
is it because of the dairy? Is it because of my aspartame? No, it's because you're eating too much. No, but
Yeah,
he said calories don't count. I'm like, you know what? I'm done. Like, just whatever. Stay fat. I don't care. Like, you can look for every excuse and yeah, because he said when you hit a plateau, you should eat more fat based on another dumb study from the, because I've read every paper since 1920 on the
yeah,
topic, right? So it works initially, like all the, the diets that do that, but then later energy expenditure goes down, your appetite goes up and people get into trouble. So yeah, that was my book. And it was, like I said, if you've got insomnia, highly recommended.
yeah, yeah.
It's a terrible
I
book
do have
otherwise.
insomnia, so I might order that book
It's
after this
so
call.
boring.
But
It's so
if you was
boring.
writing the Ultimate Diet 3.0, what would you change in that book, do you think?
So I think the probably the biggest change.
If
So
any?
yeah, there wouldn't be many. There would be a couple things, however. One is, so a few years after that, I wrote my rapid fat loss handbook, which
Yeah,
is basically very low carb, low fat, right? Is a modified protein sparing, modified fast. That is when I wrote Ultimate Diet 2, I was still locked into this idea that you shouldn't go below 1,200 calories a day. It's a very old nutrition idea, and it's wrong.
yeah,
Right. And that's so what I did with UD2 on the low carb days is I set calories at 1,200 and then or at half maintenance and then said, here's your protein and fill it up the rest with dietary fat. What I would do now would I make those days rapid fat loss days. I would make
yeah,
them look
yeah.
because you don't need the fat. That would
I
create
have
a
a client, he's doing 2 days rapid fat loss,
bingo. Yes, exactly. So I would do that
keto, and three
instead.
days carbs, and he's loving it. He says, because every day is different.
Yep.
He's never hungry. He's
Right. So,
53 like me, and is now 8.6% body fat.
right. And it's you don't have to think about it because the deficit is so monstrous on the rapid fat
Yeah.
loss
And he
days.
has the whoosh effect. He lost a
Yep.
kilo last week,
Every
and he's
time.
already lean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I would change that initially just to create a little bit larger deficit on the low carb days. Right. Then I think the other change I would make, so like again, back to the training, it was 2 depletion days. I wouldn't change that. Glycogen, enhanced fat oxidation, sets you up for the carb load. I wouldn't change the Thursday tension workout. And it's like 2 to 3 heavy sets a day per muscle group. It's about
Yeah.
40 minutes hard. That's all you need to set up for full body glycogen storage. But I think the big difference I would make now is the power workout was a lot of heavy sets of fives, and it just takes forever. And
It's
I
just not needed.
and I don't what I would do, and I don't think it's as anabolic as a higher repetition range. What I would do honestly is just
Two
have
of them.
someone repeat the tension
Yeah,
workout
exactly.
rather that it would make it a lot shorter. I think it would make it more anabolic. Something else that I wrote about this is in
Probably
the
easier with fatigue, maybe.
yeah, exactly. You're not because with heavy sets of fives, you're just the rest periods are so long. It's a 2 hour workout, which is mostly sitting around. It's hard on the joints, and that's you're bad enough,
Yeah,
big
that
enough the
wouldn't do
problem
for
on the diet.
any of my clients.
Yeah,
They want to
so
be
that
40
that
minutes.
that would be the big changes to the 7 day cycle. Something else that I put this is in the addendum. I developed a 14-day cycle, which is basically 11 days of low carbs, and then the same 3 day carb load. And basically it starts the same, 2 days of depletion, and it ends the same with the two tension, carb load, tension. The question is what to do in the middle. And
Yeah,
basically all you do is a short full body workout every 3 days.
right.
And that will be sufficient, which is basically what the training from rapid fat loss, right? You just do that's all you need for maintenance. And I actually, just as a proof of concept, I started working with this bodybuilder, natural bodybuilder named Larry Scheib Jr. a couple of years
I've
ago.
seen him on your
Yeah,
group.
and
Yeah.
he was using UD2 going into a show in 2024, and I went ahead and I moved him to the 14-day cycle with exactly that structure
Mm.
because if you look at it, so if you got 7-day structure. Let's say it's 4 low carb days and 3, just call them higher calorie days. You get basically 4 dieting days.
Yeah.
You do that. If you do that twice, you get 8 dieting days. If you do a 14-day cycle, you get 8 dieting days every 14
In
days.
14, yeah.
But if you do the 14-day cycle, you get 11 dieting days every 14 days. So the fat loss over the 2-week span is increased by about 50%, which means that, right? So let's say over 1 week, you would get 1.5 pounds, about just under 3/4 of a kilo. So over 2 weeks, you get 3 pounds, about 1.4 kilos. If you do the 14-day cycle, you're going to get 4 pounds of fat. You're getting an extra 0.5 pound, an extra 1/4 kilo. Over a month, that's an extra 2 pounds, 0.9 kilos of fat, depending on how, right? That can cut your dieting time by a month, right?
Yeah.
To get the same results, if you did the 7-day cycle for 4 months, you could get the same fat loss by doing the 14 cycle for 3. And that's huge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you can do 12 week prep or even that.
Which you have to weigh against the fact that it's 11 days of low carbs. But what I found, and I'm sure your clients find, once you get into that rhythm, once you've hit low carbs and you got plenty of protein and veggies, it's not that bad.
Yeah. I did 2 years strict keto, never did any.
Especially when you're watching when you're watching yourself get leaner every day, like not every week. When you're lean day to day, that will help you get through. Something else Larry reported, right? Because what do most people do in contest prep? High volume, high frequency. They either don't cut their volume or, God forbid, they do more, which is the dumbest crap ever. And they break. Their joints hurt. They get overtrained. They're exhausted. They're burnout. And Larry had done that before he worked with me. I just have him doing 2 or 3 hard sets every few days, full body. He loves it because he feels like, if you know you're going in prep and you're like, I got to do 15 sets for chest, you're just going to pace yourself because but you're exhausted already. When it's only 2 or 3, you know that you can just go. It's the mentality of it. You're like, I could do 3 hard sets, and you will actually do hard sets. And he's like, he loves pushing heavy weights. So he was never exhausted. His joints never hurt. He could, he just did cardio on the off days to keep the calorie burn up. He actually, in 2024, he came in too lean and dry for his class. He was in men's fitness, the board short thing. And he was too ripped, because you can be too ripped for that, which, right, he should have been in bodybuilding. They were like, and even the judges were like, dude, you got cuts on your cuts. He was so dry and so lean. And so we competed him again this year. Unfortunately, he didn't get his posing trunks early enough, and he had to do men's fitness again. But same thing, we peaked him perfectly. He came in lean and dry, took his class. This is an open. The dude's 42 years old, and he took his open class and almost took the overall. He came in second behind a guy that was bigger, because he only weighs 60 kilos, even though he looks like he weighs 75
kilos. Oh, wow. Yeah.
So that's, I used exactly that UD2 14-day cycle towards the end, right? Like we might do 7 initially, and as he gets closer and we need to or if we need to speed things up, we'll move into the 14-day cycle. I'm not going to get into the details, but that also allows me to plan how to time the carb load for his peak going into peak week, but we could do 2 hours about that. So let's not get in too deep into that.
Yeah. Again, I mean, a lot of people think that, as you said with Pasquale, that the carb load is just a free for all.
Right.
And there is psychological benefits, though, to having that carb as well when you've been carb depleted for a week.
Yes.
It allows you to go out and be a little bit more free and just not have steak and eggs.
Yeah. So there's that. Another factor that is often forgotten is when you go on low carbs and are training, you tend to flatten out. And the physique obsessed tend to think, I'm losing muscle, I'm shrinking, I feel small, I look small. And then they're like, I got a carb load, which means they go eat a tub of ice cream and fatty wings, or they, like, I got a bulk. And it's just glycogen and water, right? That's all it is.
Some keto people still say that your glycogen replenishes as much as carbs. And I say it's about 60%.
If it's even that.
Yeah.
If it's even that. And the data says they're absolutely wrong. I've looked it up, and they're wrong.
I've posted pictures of me doing 500 grams of carbs, and then on the Sunday morning, I
Yeah,
haven't trained. I've just got out of bed, and I look completely different.
yes, it's a step change. But by adding that carb load, they fill out, they look full, they may be a little watery depending on what they do, but it helps them to not be any more crazy than they already are because it makes them like, okay, I'm not losing muscle, I'm just flat. Like they're still nuts. This is why I don't like to prep bodybuilders because they lose their mind 2 weeks out. But again, but it also lets you time your peak if you're doing a show.
I mean,
Because if
that
you
picture I
carb,
sent you, I was carb depleted. I wasn't. I
yeah,
was.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and what's funny, just again, and I think we should probably move to the next topic, since I know I'm time limited, is my old training partner. When I first moved to Austin, he actually followed the anabolic diet, and I followed Body Opus. That's why
Oh,
we connected in the first place,
I was
and
it.
I ended up moving here. And he'd been a top natural bodybuilder for years, been very successful. And what he believed, and I think he's right, was when you step on stage, you're better off being a little bit flatter but dry than full and watery. And
Yeah,
I think he's right. Like being, because he was like, the lights and the oil will make you look fuller than you are. But if you're watery, you're done. Right. So for some
I think
people,
so. Yeah,
carb loads can go very wrong if you do them improperly. And there's a lot of ways to do them wrong. And that could be hours of discussion, which we don't have time for. But that picture you sent me, yeah, better to be a little flat. But when you're dry, like really dry, I mean you look shrink wrapped. Like that's the term. You're lean, you're dry. That makes you look bigger anyway.
my first show I was like that because I didn't carb load for the first show. I won it. It was
Yeah,
amateur,
exactly. Because better
but
better
I
safe than
was
sorry.
dry and
And
lean. Exactly.
even the studies, they've actually studied this, like carb load on circumferences. When you properly carb load, bodybuilders, you might gain zero point 0.5 centimeters around.
Mm.
That's not
No, it's
much.
not measurable.
Now at the elite level, I mean it is visual. Like then what they did, they took shadow photos
Yeah,
of the subjects before and after, and people did report, okay, they look a little bigger. But that's not gonna, unless you're at the most elite level, top 1.1% of 1% against the other, that's not going to be a deal breaker. Whereas if you're blurry, you've lost.
yeah.
Period. Right. So better a little, like not flat, and which is also something that a lot of people report when they do all that high volume, high frequency, they come in flat and stringy because they're overtrained.
Yeah.
When you do low volume, high intensity, like you did or
I mean, that's
Dorian
why
did,
Dorian did so
you
well, isn't
know,
it? Because he was so big, but so dry and so
and he,
lean.
yes, and I swear to God, I had the misfortune of attending a bodybuilding show about a month ago with a buddy, and the number of people on stage who actually are conditioned is in the minority. I swear to God, contest prep has gotten worse. People do not know how to. You go look back at Dorian; he was ripped, dry, and grainy. And you look at the guys now
Massive.
at the top levels and massive. And you look at top guys now; they're like, yeah, you're gigantic, but the conditioning is just not there. And I don't know if it's differences in the drugs. I know Dorian said when he tried insulin that it seemed to really
He only
burn him
took
out.
that twice. I asked him that
Yeah,
last
because he
week.
hated it because
Yeah,
it made him look worse.
yeah, he didn't like it.
I think I saw a lot of turtle belly, and that's the GH abuse because it makes your skin look weird.
I mean,
And
they talk that Arnold and all them that did more steak and eggs back in the 70s and
yeah,
less carbs, and it was Mike Mensa that was the carb guy.
sure. Yeah,
Uh,
and and again, there's lots of people. I don't know how Dorian dieted, but lots of people in the '80s ate high carb diets and they came in just fine. And
Dorian
but
was high carb.
yeah,
He
and
didn't go lower than about 350s.
that might have been individual differences. One thing Duchesne wrote about in Body Opus that like in the '70s, towards the end of the diet, all you ate was canned tuna in water. Right. But what is that? It's just a protein.
It's just protein.
It's just my RFL, right? Like
Exactly.
that's all it is. And they would come in ripped and it would dry them out naturally. And nobody knew from carb loading. Admittedly, they didn't get as lean as guys now, but they didn't have to, right? Like the conditioning requirements in the 70s, nowhere close.
No one.
80s, they were bigger and leaner. I think the 90s, you look at Dorian and Ronnie is really when the combination of mass, leanness, and dryness peaked. Like Dorian's just grainy as hell. I keep getting reels, and I mean, he's I maintain he's one of the smartest bodybuilders in the history of the sport. And he said when he was backstage, he could tell who was in shape and who wasn't by their jaw muscles. If you can see these
Yeah,
muscles
he looked like a
flexing
skeleton
when
here,
you
didn't
chew, you are in shape. And if not, you're not as lean as you could be. And he's completely right. And the guys now and the people that there were a couple that looked great, but most of them between the GH and the insulin and just not knowing how to diet or peak. Larry, who competed the weekend before as a natural, looked better than a lot of the not all. I mean, there's some really, really top physiques on
he?
that stage, and the
I think
majority
now
just
the GLP help well, they will
yes.
make their prep easier where it should be a bit hard, you know.
Well, and I think what it'll do, like, it's not going to make physiques any better. And it might make them worse because I think it'll make it harder to carb load. I think more people are going to come in flat and stringy. What
Right.
it's going to do is allow more mediocre physiques to make it to stage
Yeah.
because they're not going to. Duchesne once wrote, he said, when it comes to contest prep, the final battle is at the refrigerator. Who can control their appetite? GLPs will let more mediocre bodybuilders get into shape,
See,
but
but then if they
it
haven't
won't.
got the appetite, they can't load up.
They can't, and if you don't have the size and the leanness, if you don't have the size and the shape and the symmetry in the first place, it doesn't matter. You can't polish a turd. And
No.
and the reality, and this is just, I would say bodybuilding is probably the most genetic sport. If you've got high calves, too bad. If you've got high bicep insertions, there's nothing. If you're an endurance athlete and you don't have the speed, you can make up for it with better endurance, right? You
Yeah.
can in other sports, you can make up for genetic deficits. And in bodybuilding, you can't. I mean, you
No.
can with surgery, implants or Esicline, I guess, or synthol, but you
At
can
that
if
level, you can't. Yeah.
at the top level. I mean, look at Dorian 6 months into training. He looked better than 99% of people in any gym, and he just got better from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
They said you're the best in England after about a year.
yeah, exactly. And then 10 years or however many it was of just like insanely productive training. And he was the best for a reason till he had the injury and couldn't bring his best package and he had the sense to retire.
Yeah, he knew when to get out of it, and he's done very well. No, he's a very good thinker. He's a great.
Oh, and it's fascinating to me now. And he said in hindsight, he wishes he had deloaded a little more frequently. He wishes he had maybe cut his intensity a little bit in contest prep because he did have a
That's what
couple
he
of
tells us to
minor
do.
minor injuries. And but also he's like once he was done, man, he was done. He lost, he dropped weight. I mean, he still looks great. I mean, God's sake, he still looks amazing. He's like, yeah, lift weights a couple times a week, do
He's still
yoga,
103, 105 kilos.
yeah, like he's not the 140, 35 he competed at.
Yeah,
He's healthy. He does yoga, he rides his bike. And then you've got Ronnie who's still trying to train like that, and he's in a walker,
yeah,
right? Dorian did his thing when he was clear he couldn't go any further because of the bicep tear. He's like, I'm going to quit on top. And we
yeah.
can debate, should he have won that final show? Doesn't matter. Maybe
Well, you've got to beat the champion, haven't you, as well?
yeah, you can't just match the champion. And he knew he
Yeah.
wasn't bringing his best package. And he said, I
But he
can't.
knew which poses that he could
Yeah.
be unbeaten.
But, and that's a lot of bodybuilding. Trust me, I'm not a posing guy, but a lot of it is emphasize what your strong parts are and hide your weak parts from the judges.
What he did, he said. But once you turn around, no one could beat him on that back.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I still may. And if you look at, we can quibble about the training, and I think we're going to talk about that next with the effective reps thing. But if you look at his approach to exercise selection, there are no superfluous movements. Everything is picked for a very lot. And it's funny, in recent years, I've sort of been like, look, because what do most people do for chest? Barbell bench, dumbbell bench, chest press machine. Those are the same movement. Those are all the same functional movement. Same thing, cable row, one arm row, this row, that row. Like those are all the same movement. And you look at like his back routines or his chest routines or even his leg routines, there was no overlap in the sense that he wasn't just doing the same pattern. It's like, okay, chest, we're going to do a compound chest, and then we're going to do a fly, then we're going to do an upper chest movement, an incline fly. What else do you need? And the answer is nothing. His back, he had a mid-back movement that also involved lats. He had his undergrip sort of pull down row. He had a one-arm row because he also believed he always finished with a one-arm movement because he felt you got a better contraction, which we now know scientifically is true. He did a pullover. He did that sort of
Well, you can lift more weight when
hybrid.
it's
Yeah, you could do a hybrid row, and then like 4 movements. It's like, well, what's missing?
Mm.
What the lower inner rhomboid? His back. There was nothing missing. He had 2 movements for rear delts. He did a dumbbell rear delt, and then he did sort of that on a reverse pec deck machine. He said he's like, look, the biceps bend the arm. How
Yeah.
many freaking movements do you need? Like in
Yeah.
my model, at most 3.
It's just a logical thinker, and that's
Yes,
what
he was. And he just, like, again, we can quibble about whether or not the failure thing, and I think we're talking about that next, because I'll explain the way I sort of look at different training systems. But there was just no wasted, and he said, look, if you found exercises that work for you as an individual, and those do vary, there is no fundamental reason to ever change them. And I agree with that completely. Right?
Yeah, because everybody now wants to change their program to
Well,
confuse the muscle.
they have since Arnold. You got the Weider muscle confusion principle, and shock the body, and this and that and the other, and like people report good results from that. But here's why, in my opinion, most people train too hard. Well, if they train hard at all, they train too hard for too long, and they break. Dorian would go all out for 6 weeks and then take 2 weeks of reduced volume and intensity, and then he would start over again, so he wouldn't get injured. What happens when people change exercises? Well, the first week they don't know how much weight to use, so they automatically deload. Then the second week they go a little bit heavier, and then by the third week they're
just getting into it.
All what it's doing is it's giving them the deload that they could just as easily take and never change exercises. So Dorian did the same movements for 2 weeks, cut everything by 30%, start again. They do something for however long, and then they do another movement that makes them reduce by 20%.
Again, your Gen Pop person just wants a bit of variety to keep them interested.
And that's fine too. For Gen Pop, I don't care.
Yeah.
I would always teach my people at least 2 movements per muscle group. Do one till you get bored, or do one workout. This is Gen Pop. But if I'm training someone who wants optimal hypertrophy, switching up every 3 weeks not only doesn't help, it hurts, because you don't ever have time to get in what these called gainers momentum, right? Like just about the time at week 3 that you're probably going to start making gains, you change. They're like, but I gain 10% every 3 weeks. Yeah, but it's the same 10%.
No, it's did you ever study? Well, I'm sure you've read everything, but Vince Gironda, he used to say every 4th week you take the week off.
Sure, then you just go. Yes, exactly. Like,
I mean, I've never done that. I can't take any off. That's the problem.
Well,
but 3 weeks to take a week off.
But I think I don't like those forced systems where it's like you must take an easy week at this frequency. What that came out of early Russian and German periodization, genuinely. And what people forget is that the Russians were taking the kids and sending them to sports schools. Well, they wanted to see their parents once a week. So what they would do is they would beat on them for 3 weeks and then send them home for a week, 3-1. The Germans did a little bit different. They would give oral turinabol for 3-week cycles and then give them a week off the drug. 3 hard weeks, 1 easy week. It was either practical or drug-based. It had nothing to do with physiology. So now, how often you have to deload depends on how much volume you're doing.
How much work you're doing, yeah.
And the frequency. If someone is doing high volume bodybuilding work for a muscle group twice a week, they might very well need a deload. Dorian was training each muscle group once a week for a handful of sets and needed to deload every 6 weeks because his intensity was so high. When I was training my elite power lifter, she never really deloaded, but her volumes were controlled. Her frequency was high, but I was very gradual in the progression. I never overloaded.
You never went to failure.
I never broke her ever. Like, she would hit failure every once in a while, but it was never the goal. So it really just depends. I've got another guy I consult with, and then we will move on. He's in the UK, very Dorian inspired. He does 4 sets per muscle group twice a week. He all out failure. He just does it. Yeah. He's tried reducing intensity, like lowering the weight, and he just makes the same progress. He hits a wall. That doesn't work for him.
Mm.
And what he's found works best is he will just train hard until he feels those little joint pains, that little sense of overtraining that is signaling he's running out of recovery. And then he'll cut his volume in half. He won't reduce the intensity. He'll still, rather than 4 sets to failure in a workout, he'll do 2. And that's a huge reduction.
Yeah,
And he'll do that until he feels
that's what
recovered,
I do.
which usually takes about 2 weeks. And then, right, so there are different ways to deload. The point is you are deloading, but you're deloading your volume.
Yeah,
Dorian was deloading volume and intensity, but think of just how ungodly his
yeah,
output was. And that's
yeah.
the difference.
It is. I trained with him for 4 days several times, and I've
And
never
you
trained.
survived. And you
You don't train
survived.
unless you're with Dorian, of course.
Right.
But he kept that up for 10 years plus.
It's so funny when the videos and some bodybuilder who thinks they know how to train hard will go let Dorian take them. There's one, I think it's Chris Cormier, being Dorian
I've
takes him to a
seen
leg
it.
workout, and after he's done, he
He's
crawls out in
throwing
the
up.
parking lot and just throws up his guts.
Yeah,
He's like, people thought they were training hard until they had Dorian take him through a set, and they
yeah,
learned a new level of both intensity and pain.
yeah. He likes to say one more. I did it about 17 times on my legs.
Yes,
it was brutal.
it's just one more. Yeah.
I
Okay.
know you have to shoot soon, but
We
I
got
wanted
we
to
got 40
talk
minutes.
about effective reps.
Yeah.
Because who coined that term?
So actually, the first version of that I remember hearing was actually called stimulating reps. And that was back in the 2000s. That was Boris Fagerly who developed the Meyer rep system.
Oh, yeah.
And he called them, which is funny if you go back into the 70s, even Arnold in that group, they talked about those last 2 or 3 hard reps of a set. They called those stimulating reps because
Right.
even we can dump on bro science and like go back and look at Arnold and them training. Did they go to failure? No. Did they go close?
It still was tough. It was hard.
Go watch the sets of him doing crossovers. Those last couple of reps are pretty slow. They just didn't do because they like to do a little bit more volume. I think
they had nothing else to do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But to train for 2 hours, 6 days a week, right? Most of us have a life. So, and again, I'll talk about once I lay out the model that will work. That is one way. Hang on, I'm getting ahead of myself. This will make sense in a second. I want to say the effective rep terminology came from a guy online named Chris Beardsley. Don't swear me to that, but I think but again, Bohr started with stimulating reps. Effective reps is the new model. And let's define what that is so everyone's clear. Now, to understand this, I need to give a little bit of physiology. Okay, in muscle, there are generally 2 muscle fiber types. Type 1, slow twitch, endurance, low force output, not a lot of potential for growth. That's for runners and cyclists and stuff. Okay. Then there's type 2, fast twitch muscles, much more growth potential, higher force output, fatigue more quickly. There's a bunch of subversions of type 2, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter for this discussion, and I don't want to get too deep into myosin heavy change and molecular biology because it doesn't matter. Type 1, type 2. Now, when you were looking at voluntary activity, fibers recruit from smallest and weakest to strongest and largest in a fairly orderly fashion. This is called Henneman's size principle, right? So imagine you're walking, very low force output, few type 1 fibers, and you can go until you get bored or dehydrate or whatever. Or if you're in Atlanta, drop dead because of the sun, right? Because you get
10
heat stroke,
seconds.
right? Yeah, 10 seconds outside. Right now you go up, let's say you move to a jog, still slow. A little bit more type 1 fibers, still low force. You could probably run for hours until your knees gave out or whatever, right? Let's go a little bit faster. Let's get to, say, your maximum steady state, the speed you could maintain for an hour at the absolute maximum. Right now, we're starting to get some type 2 fibers. Right now, we're getting some higher force outputs. You can make it, but at an hour, you're going to start to fatigue. And then let's say you go all out. You're being chased by a bear and you have to just run as fast as you can. And you've got it'll be close to maximum fiber recruitment. It will be maximum force output. And you got maybe 60 to 90 seconds. And if you don't get away, you're done. Right. Yeah. So that is the general picture of it. So if we're looking at muscle, like in the weight room, it gets a little more complicated. So it's the same thing, right? Go lift. Let's say you can bench 100 kilos. If you bench 10, you can do that all day till you get bored, right? If you go to 50 kilos, which is 50% of your max, you can probably do, 30 repetitions. You're getting a little bit more type 2, but it's still, now you go to 9. Let's say you could bench 100 kilos for one. That's your 1 rep max. At 75 kilos, 75%, you might get 10 repetitions. You're getting a lot of type 2 fibers, and you're not going to do. If you're at 90 kilos, you might get 3, and at 100 you get 1. Okay, so that's the curve. Now, there are two at about 85% of maximum, of maximum. It's called maximum voluntary isometric contraction. Don't worry about it. Just think of it as 1 rep max. It's close enough. If you start at 85%, right, that's usually about 5 repetitions max, and you can do all out. You will get full fiber recruitment.
Yeah.
On that note, there's this idea that humans can only recruit 30% of their total muscle fibers, and that's wrong. Even beginners can recruit about 97% of their triceps and maybe 90% of their quad muscles.
Right.
Which is interesting because there's an old idea that legs need higher reps or more volume, and it might be related to that, but let's not go down that path because I'll talk for the next hour and I have somewhere to be.
You used to say that you had to lift heavy weights to get maximum fiber recruitment. When did they find that out? That you don't?
Oh God, the 85% thing, I've got to tell you, that's got to been in the 90s. That's way back. But
Right.
yeah, so if you were to start at 85% of max, a 5-rep max, you would get full fiber recruitment from the first repetition.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say you back off to 80%. About an 8, you could do 8 reps to failure. You won't get full fiber recruitment right away. But by about repetition 3, you will. So that last 5 repetitions will look neurologically, physiologically, exactly like the max set of 5. Now, let's say you do an all-out set of 15. You don't like low reps. You like feeling a burn. What you'll see is for the first 10 or so reps, you will not get full fiber recruitment. But the last 5 will look like the last 5 sets of 8 and the all-out set of 5. Those will look, if you did an EMG, will look essentially, it gets a little more entrenched, but I'm not trying to give a graduate level lecture. Also, let's say you do that low load stuff. You do that 30 reps to failure nonsense, right? The first 25 reps are just a waste because the last 5 repetitions will look like the final set of 5 in the 15, the final set of 5 in the 8, and the 5 in the all-out set of 5. Okay, and that's why for the low load stuff, you have to go to failure. But for a set of 8, you don't, and here's why. Let's say you did 8 reps with a 10-rep max. You won't get, which is about 75%. You will not get full recruitment for like the first 4 or 5 reps, but you will get full recruitment for the last 3. Now, what an effective rep is defined as is the repetitions done under conditions of maximum recruitment. That's how the effective rep is functionally defined. So if you do a maximum set of 5, you get 5 effective reps. If you do an all-out set of 8, you will get 5 effective reps, but it took you 3 extra to get there. If you do 15, 4 to 5 effective reps, 12 to 10 to get there. 30 reps, 5 effective reps, and you dicked around for 25 to get there, right? So effectively, those are the same. For all practical purposes, there's minor nuance. Doesn't matter. If you want to know, send me an email. It's close enough. Consult me, and I'll be happy to bore you with all this crap for 2 hours. Yeah. But this is good enough for now. Now, so the idea is only the effective reps are growth stimulating. Now, I don't agree with that in an absolute sense. If you only did, like, let's say you train like most people, and you do a set of 15, you take away, you could do 15 with, and you do 8.
Then you got none.
You will get 0 effective reps, but some of those muscle fibers will get a training stimulus.
Yeah. Right?
It's just, you won't get all of them. That's the key. So, but what this means is there's 2 ways to get to maximum recruitment. You can start with heavy weights and not go to failure. Like let's say you took a 5-rep max. Let's say 85% you did, and you did a triple. You get 3 effective reps. Yeah. Now, is it an efficient way to do it? No, but you would, right? If you do a set of 5 when you could do 10, you will get maybe one effective rep if you're lucky. But
maybe.
that doesn't mean that some muscle fibers will get a training stimulus. But if you want to get all of them, you have to get some number of repetitions under conditions of maximum recruitment. So I think the strictest form of the effective rep argument is wrong, in that you will train certain muscle fibers by not getting any effective reps, but you won't train the ones with the most growth potential.
Yeah. So you won't get to your maximum growth potential.
No, absolutely not.
And the
absolutely
problem
not.
is what people that do 3 sets of 10 and that's it and think that's enough volume, or 10 sets of 10, is they don't know what failure is. They've never been there. So
Correct.
They could have done 18 reps and they only do 10.
Correct. And this is the point. I did a bunch of videos 6 years ago to call out Mike Israetel, and he still hasn't acknowledged, and we're 7 years in, and he still hasn't acknowledged that I'm right. And I put up like 30 videos. I said, look,
he's probably still editing the PhD thing.
Yeah, right. And I just said, this is what muscular failure looks like. Not you should do it. And we're going to come back to that. This is what it looks like, because until you've had a happy sadist like me or Dorian take you through a set, realistically, and studies have shown this, left to their own devices, most people will train at about 60% of their maximum potential. They will do 10 reps with a weight they could get 17, 18 with, like you said, right? Go into any commercial gym. I watch people, they're doing repeat warm-ups. Because here's what a set of failure will look like in most cases. There are some weird exceptions, right? So let's say I'm doing an all-out set of 10. It'll be like 1, 2, whatever pace I'm using, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if I try the next one, I'll get stuck, and that'll be it, right? There is a distinct... Generally, there is a distinct bar speed slowing that starts about 4 reps from failure. Now, I said generally, there are certain muscle groups that, for whatever reason, just dealt. I don't know why. You get on a lateral raise machine, and you'll just be like 7, 8, 9, 10.
Done.
Done. I don't know why that is. It just is, and it depends on the person. It depends on the muscle group. But what this means is that if you're a trainee, and let's say you've been training for 6 months, or let's be training for 6 years. You're probably still training like you were when you started. If you don't have me talking you through a set, here's what you should do. Get on an exercise that you can do safely. Do not do this on back squats. Do not do this on barbell bench press. Get on a well-built machine chest press, whatever it is. Now take a weight that you think is your 10 rep max, that you can only do 10 reps with, or whatever. Now, when you get to 10, bring it back, take a big breath, and try to do one more. And I guarantee you, unless you are the exception, it will go. Yeah. And do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And when you think you cannot do another repetition, bring it back, and try, give it every ounce of effort that you have, and you will be stunned at how diluted you are, right? You will get 17. And I'm not saying
what Dorian says was, imagine you've got a gun at your head, I'm going to shoot your kid.
That's actually, that's an old Arthur Jones quote. Arthur Jones believed that you couldn't actually ever get to true failure. He said, if you think you're done and I put a gun in your face, you will do another repetition. That's making a point. Please don't do that. But it is making the point that and something else I've noticed. So when I put up my videos and I showed myself going to failure, people in my Facebook group with years of experience were like, the next time I went to the gym, I added 40 pounds to the machine and still did 7 reps more. They're like, I would have sworn until I saw what it's supposed to look like. But something else you see is that most people fail when they give up. It's called volitional muscular failure, which is the dumbest definition. Defines failure as when the person thinks they can't do another repetition. Which means that if I took a 10 rep, a true 10 rep failure weight and stopped at 2, that means I've hit failure because I decided I couldn't do anymore. You
decided, yeah.
That is the biggest load of shit I've ever heard, right? When I defined failure in my articles, in my videos that Mike just danced around, I said, physiological muscular failure is when you cannot complete another repetition despite giving 100% effort.
Mm.
Physiological. I don't care about technical failure. That's why I said do it on a machine. There is no technique to fail on a seated leg curl, for example, for God's
Yeah.
sake, Mike. It is not volition. It's not when you decide, because people quit when it gets too hard, harder than
Yeah.
they want to deal
But the
with.
brain quits first. It's
Sure, no
always.
doubt. But in that regards, learning to go to true failure takes practice.
Mm.
You can't just do it with one workout. You give me someone that I'm going to train consistently. And I started them as a beginner. The first 3 months is learning. They got to learn technique, what muscle they're working, breathing, tempo, blah, 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 blah. And at the 3 month mark, I'm going to start pushing them harder. And I'm going to have them do 3 months, taking them one more rep, one more rep. Come on. And they learn, they're like, okay, I thought I was done. And then I got two more. And then
Mm.
the next workout, when they think they're done, they get another one. Over time, you learn that your limits are way for,
That's why they can keep adding a rep each week as well, because they're
yeah,
learning to go to failure
yes.
better.
And it does take, and it's the same in endurance sports, right? Like one thing that like elite cyclists can do that beginners can't is they call it the pain cave. And when you train with Dorian, he took you into the pain cave,
Yeah.
right? It is like a friend of mine who is a cyclist, he said, when you're riding, and I rode bikes for a while, and you may not have any context for this. He's like, whenever you think you're done, just get one more pedal stroke. Just one, because you can think in those terms. You can't
Mm.
think in I've got another 30 kilometers. Just one, just keep turning the pedal, because if you stop, you're done. Once you quit, you cannot get started again. As long as you do not ever, and eventually you may still shut down. He goes, get the next pedal stroke, get the next rep, get the next footfall if you're running, get the next stroke if you're swimming.
And
And
then you
as you
can have
do that over, you will realize, holy crap, I had 30% untapped potential that I didn't even, but it takes practice. Now, does that mean you should always train to failure going forwards? No, and don't mishear me. Because the next thing I want to discuss that I think is important, we have this endless debate about volumes. Do 20 sets, do failure, do this, do how many sets is optimal? And the answer is it depends. In my opinion, they're asking the wrong question, both in the studies and in the debates, because you can do 10 sets of 10 and get no stimulus, and you can do four in the study that Mike Israetel was involved with. They worked up to 32 sets of 10. They were working with a weight that it's called 4 reps in reserve. They finished 4 reps from failure. They maybe got 1 effective rep per set. And they did it on such a long rest interval because they worked in a circuit. They returned to the same exercise every 10 minutes. There was no cumulative fatigue.
That's like the world's most boring workout as well.
It is the world's most inefficient workout.
Yeah.
They got 32 effective reps in a week with 32 sets. If you were to do 6 sets to limit, if you did 3 sets to limit failure twice a week, getting 5 effective reps per set, you would get 15 and 15. In 6 sets, you would get the same number of effective reps as they got in 32 sets of time wasting, spending 2 hours in the gym, accomplishing nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So to talk about sets and reps, to me, it's asking the wrong question. A set of 20 may generate, like rest pause, like the breathing squat, may generate more total effective reps than 20 sets of garbage, right? Which is what most people do. And I think that if you, rather than thinking in terms of sets and reps or tonnage or volume load or whatever other crap they're using, if you think in terms of effective reps, all of these arguments disappear. And let me explain why. So what we don't know yet is how many effective reps are optimal for growth. This is an unanswered question because the scientists aren't. Now, Chris Beardsley has argued that 25 per workout is optimal. I've read his article on this a dozen times. I've talked to people that worked with him. I do not follow his logic, and I cannot figure it out. That's neither here nor there. Let's assume that's right, or let's assume that somewhere between 20 and 30 is about right. I'm not saying it is. Let's just use that so I can explain what I'm going to talk about. So if 20 to 30 effective reps is optimal per workout to get an optimal stimulus, right? 10 may give you some. Beyond a certain point, you probably are not getting any more than you would. Like if you do 50, you're probably not getting any more than 30. But let's assume 20 to 30 is the sweet spot. You get the best stimulus without doing junk volume, without cutting too far into recovery, for the sake of argument. Okay, how do we get there? You could do 4 maximum sets of 5. That's 20 reps, up to 6. Well, what's the old workout? 5 by 5.
Yeah.
And if you look at the original Bill Starr workout, he would do 5 by 5, usually 2 top sets. So that's 10 effective reps. And then he would allow bodybuilding work, 2 sets of 20, which probably got it right. It's probably about 20, 30 reps. Okay, but let's ignore that. You could do, so let's look at the rest pause stuff, right?
Well, that was going to be my next question as well.
Right. So that's the idea. Borges Fagerly's myoreps was a rest pause system. So you would basically go, you do what's called an activation set. You would train close to failure, not to grinding failure, to get full fiber recruitment, right? Maybe 2 reps in reserve. Then you'd rest about 20 seconds and you do 4 more reps and you get like 4 more effective reps and 4 and 4 and 4. Then you were done. So you get 2 and then 4 times 4, that's about 18 or however his system is a little more complicated. I'm going to use dog crap, which is a different rest pause as a bet. And then we're going to talk about Dorian, because if you look at his workout, he was spot on, but let's wait on that. So dog crap style rest pause is you do an all out set to failure. So let's say you get 5 effective reps. Rest about 20 seconds. You do as many more reps as you can, what he calls a mini set. Rest, mini set, rest, mini set. In his original writings, he described something that I've never seen happen. Let me talk about, because I do only rest pause because I don't like being in the gym. So I'll do a set. I'll get an all-out set of 8, 5 effective reps. Then I will get 3, 2, 1. That's another 6. That's 11. I will do 2 or 3 exercises per body part. That's 22 to 33 effective reps.
Once a week.
Now I train a little. I train every 5th day because I'm not as strong as you guys, and I can recover from that every 5th day. And that's what Dante used. Okay, let's look at Dorian's training. So he typically did 4 exercises per muscle group, on average, bigger muscle groups. He would go to failure, so you're getting 5 effective reps, but then he would do like 3 forced repetitions. Watch his videos. His training partner just gives him just enough help. So let's say he's getting 8 effective reps per exercise. What's 8 times 4 exercises? 32 effective reps. Boom, done. Right? So you could do that. If you just want to do straight sets to failure, you're looking at 4 to 6 sets per workout. That's about the most, to true failure, that's about the most any human being could do. Anyone who says they're doing 15 sets to failure, bullshit. Send me the video because I know better. It can't be done. No. Right? And anyone, if you come to Austin, I will take you to the gym and I'll prove it. Just like Dorian proves it. I'll put you on the hack squat machine and just take you to concentric failure.
They wrote about to do 10 sets of 10 squats to failure with 1 minute. Didn't they?
Bullshit. Right. By set 3, you can't stand up or even get it. You cannot.
I did 1 set with Dorian. I could not. I had to lay down for 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I do. I finished I was dealing with an injury. Before that, I was finishing my leg workout with a rest pause set of hack squats. So I do a set of failure, rest 20 seconds, 3, 2, 1, and then I would go lie down. Because if I didn't, I would fall over. Right. So don't tell me you're doing 10 sets of failure on squats with a minute, because it cannot be done. Okay, so let's go up next. Let's say you stop at 2 reps in reserve. Right. You do a set of 8 when you could do an all-out set of 10. Now you're getting 3 effective reps. Well, you need to do about 8 to 10 sets, and that's probably consistent with the real world. Now, let's say you decide to do short rest interval work, 30 seconds, 45 seconds between sets. Well, research has shown there that you need to do about 50% more sets. 10 sets becomes 15. Boom, done. I just explained every training system that exists. The difference is not in the set and the rep parameters. They all achieve the same number of effective reps. They just get there a different way. And the point I want to make, and this goes to something we talked about, it's not a matter of which system is right. Depends on the person. I consult with a lot of people that are like, I don't know I don't know reps in reserve. I don't know 3 reps from failure. I know what failure is, period, for them. I give them lower volumes. I go,
Yeah.
fine, we're gonna do 4 sets per muscle group. If they go, I don't like to failure, or maybe they only have free weights and it's not generally safe to do that. Okay, we're gonna have you do 2 reps in reserve. I'm gonna give you 6 to 8 sets per workout to
Yeah.
accommodate that. If they want to do 60-second or 45 seconds between sets, they can go find someone else to talk to because I don't program stupid training like that. Right.
Mm.
The point of this being like, I like rest pause because I don't like being in the
Yeah.
gym and I'm really good at intensity. I always
I
have
like
that.
the sports. I like
Right.
hard training.
Because it's not even that I like hard training. I'm good at it and I hate being in the gym at this point in my life. I want the most time efficient training. If I can just do two
You're telling
rest
20 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, I've had workouts that took no more than 30 minutes, and I get more work done than all those people faffing about for 2 hours,
Yeah.
right? So for me, rest pause, I like that. And I'm old. I don't do barbell work anymore. It's machines. I can go
People
quickly
just
through the
don't
workout,
train.
right?
The kids are on their phones.
Oh God, yes.
There was a guy in my gym down here, and I had to time him because I could not believe it. And
I've done the I've
he
done the
did a
same thing.
shoulder press. 18 minutes he sat there
Yeah.
looking at the phone, and then did another set, not hard,
Yeah.
then sat another 18 minutes, then went home.
Yes, exactly. No, I saw it. This was years ago, and I saw the same thing. I saw a guy over in the power rack doing RDLs, and he was on his phone, and I was like still doing it. I set a timer, and it was about 10 minutes on his phone. I'm like, he better be about to unleash hell. And he did a set of triple that I had a 15-year-old girl that could have done more than that.
Yeah.
And he did it, and he went right back to his phone. And I'm like, why are you even here? I've seen people on their phones during the set. I've seen people
Oh,
talking
leg
during
extension.
their
Yeah, the
leg
text.
extension, leg press, in or outer thigh machine. There's a guy I was training next to him, and I was actually being a dick. He had his phone and he was talking to someone on his phone while he was doing his sets.
Yeah.
So I was doing either upright rows or push downs on the cable stack, and I went out of my way to slam the weights and grunt as loudly as possible, just because fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Either train or talk. And if you're going to talk, I am going to make, and I can see him kind of going, I can't hear my conversation. Yeah, well, fuck you.
That's the only thing I miss about, well, one of the things I miss about the gyms in the 90s was we never had phones in there.
Right. I hate it. So unfortunately, my key code or my barcode to get into the gym is on my phone.
Yeah.
I don't even I used to, before I had that, I just left my phone in the car.
Yeah.
I don't use it. I carry it. It's just something else I have to carry around with me. I don't use it. If I get a text from someone, I go, hey, I'm in the gym and I don't use my phone. And I do my workout. And then if whatever I need to do, like seriously, people, there is nothing on Instagram that cannot wait. There is no one, unless you are. So in the 90s, right, people had those headphone phones, the Bluetooth.
Oh, yeah. That
Yeah.
was probably the noughties one, then.
It was, thereabouts. And I remember seeing people in my gym, and I'm like, look, unless you are a surgeon on call,
Yeah.
there is nothing you need to be talking about in here. Right? Yeah, fine. If you're a cardiac surgeon or brain surgeon and you're on call and might have to be called in to operate, absolutely. Otherwise, I don't give a shit that you're a realtor and seriously.
Yeah,
you might as well stay home or just go walk on the treadmill for all the good this is doing you.
Just go play golf.
There was another one. I was on doing my awful leg extension, and there was some bro on his phone next to me doing a set talking about crypto bullshit, and I went out of my way to make as much noise as humanly possible, screaming on every rep, slamming the weights at the bottom after I lowered it slowly, just because I don't usually do this stuff, but Jesus Christ. And then there's the people that will just camp a piece of equipment for 20 minutes. It's like, go or move. I don't care which you do. If you want to stick on your phone, just stand up. I will be done in 2 minutes. You've still got 8 more minutes on your phone. Just move. It's the only reason that I would consider building a home gym, but the money, I don't care. It would cost me so much money. I would never make it back because my gym's so cheap. But God Almighty, I hate it. Right? Yeah. Either get in here to do your work or stay at home and dork around on TikTok.
When I go
old men.
6 a.m. though, then generally the people that are there
Sure.
A
I
little bit more.
I go at 1 o'clock, which isn't so bad, but it's still awful. Dorian put up a meme himself and I reposted it. And he said, uh, it was something to the effect of, you know how I got so big during my day? Talking on my phone between sets. It was sort of a piss take.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this is like, and I actually did put up a post and I was like, there are maybe 5 reasons or there's like 5 better things to do between sets than get on your phone, right? It's like focus on your technique, cue yourself on what you're doing wrong, prepare yourself for the intent. And so you're like, well, I record my workouts on my app. Okay, fine, but 99% of people are not doing that because I can see them
Yeah,
scrolling Instagram.
most people are not either.
They are not using their camera to do video analysis. I've seen that. There was a
I
girl,
saw
she's a
one kid last year, he was just playing a game,
right,
sitting on the back
exactly. I'll do
second
that on the
seat behind him.
treadmill to kill time, but
Yeah, but
even
that's
then,
different.
and I did. I saw a female powerlifter in there one time, and she would set up a camera and she would video her set. It was either for her coach or to get her own technical feedback. That is a completely
That's
valid
fine.
use of the
That,
phone, right? Absolutely. But that's not, we know that that's what 99% of these dill holes are doing. They're just goofing all they're texting during sets. I've seen that. Of course, the trainer, one of the in-house trainers at the gym, she's training during her client set, so you know she's paying attention. Like,
yeah,
honey, there's nobody that's that important that you need to be texting when you are at work.
yeah,
For
that's
God. Anyway, we are both old men yelling at clouds. It is what it is, and it's never going to change. The point of this being that I think if you go back and look, there is not a lot of direct data on effective reps. We are making inferences. There a better model may come along, but I think at this point it's the best
success leaves
model we
clues,
have.
right? Success leaves clues, and
Sure.
Dorian obviously
If
in '93 added 20 pounds of muscle by doing less sets.
right to failure, and yes, some of the
Because
other
he would have
guys,
stayed there and done more, he said, if it could have made him bigger.
right.
So there
And
has to be a limit of how
well,
many effective reps
yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
do.
Beyond a certain point, it's just and if you go back and look at all the supposed high volume studies, they're usually defining failure as technical failure. Yeah, fine. If you're doing 5 sets of 12 in the squats on 90 seconds with a bunch of college students, they're stopping about 4 reps short of failure because they don't know what they're doing.
Mm.
Yeah, you're getting 1 effective rep per set. They're getting 5, then they're doing leg extensions, and they're probably, yeah, absolutely. You need high volume to make up for faff about training. Right?
Mm.
Now, does that make faff about training bad? No, if you want to spend 2 hours in the weight room to get the same results, that's more power to you. If it's your safe space or your psychological outlet, cool. I don't think either of us are saying is that failure is the best way, but yeah, if Dorian, even if he could have done 6 all-out sets to failure, which he couldn't have, it cannot be done.
Yeah.
It's one or the other. It's either you can do a few sets of rest pause. You can do a few more sets of straight to failure. You can do a few more sets if you stop 2 reps short. And remember, I saw something else again that I think probably is a good place to end, unless you have another question, is I saw Dorian say, because he and Ronnie were overlapping, but Ronnie
Yeah.
was coming up as
Yeah.
Dorian was sort of winding down. And he said, if you look at the way Ronnie and I trained, it's not as different as you think. He's like, I was spending 4 days in the gym for 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Ronnie was spending 5 days in the gym for maybe 90 minutes. He's like, in the big picture, the difference, Ronnie was not going to grinding failure. He was doing more volume. He was doing way too much low repetition work, which is point. There is no reason for a bodybuilder to do triples and knee sleeves in the back squat. What a dumbass thing to do. Because it is not purposeful. And actually in that vein, even though I don't really think much of his work, a researcher who I will not name once did a paper and he compared 7 sets of 3 to 3 sets of 10 on muscle growth. And he found that they were basically the same. Now, he looked at it in terms of volume load, but let's think about that. If you're doing sets of 3 close to a 3-rep max, that's 21 effective reps.
Mm.
If you're doing 3 sets of 10 close to failure, that's about 15. Of course, the growth was the same. It had nothing to do with the volumes or the volume loads. Both workouts generated essentially the same number of effective reps. Actually,
So,
I would say the triples were probably closer
More.
to two effective reps.
Yeah.
No, because you're not doing 7 sets of 3 rep max. You're not, that's impossible. If they were doing 7 sets of 3, like a 4 rep max, 2 effective reps,
You're getting
four,
two. Yeah.
14, 14 versus 15. Of course, it's the same.
Mm.
So I'm not saying that the effective rep model is correct. In my mind, it's the only model we currently have that can explain all the different systems that seem to work. You go look at Arnold. Okay. Now, number one, okay, they were doing 5 exercises per muscle group for 5 sets apiece. But look at those workouts. The first 3 were warm-ups. Only the last 2 were hard. So they would do on the last 2.
But they got progressively heavier loads.
Yeah. So like maybe the last 2 sets even slowed down a little bit. So let's say that on any given exercise, they got maybe 2 effective reps per set. So they got 4 per exercise and they did 5 exercises. That's 20 effective reps. It just keeps coming back. It's simply different paths to the goal.
That can be only the right explanation. Otherwise, one method would work and the other one wouldn't.
Well, what's so funny? So, and I'm sure you haven't read this book, and I highly don't recommend it. There was a Russian guy named Vladimir Zatsiorsky who wrote this truly tedious book called The Science and Practice of Strength Training. Don't read it. It's terrible. So like historically, there were all these theories of muscle growth. The pump. There's the pump theory. Then there was, Bob Gajda, who said he believed that you shouldn't let blood pool in the muscle. He had peripheral heart action where you should keep the blood moving. There was the muscle damage theory. That's totally wrong. There's been a metabolite theory. There's all these theories. But Zatsiorsky's model of training was that you had to both recruit a muscle fiber and expose it to enough repetitions to get a training stimulus. If you only recruited it and didn't do enough reps, you wouldn't get a stimulus. If you didn't recruit it, you obviously can't get a stimulus. And the reason to think about that is, okay, let's say you do a maximum single. You will get full recruitment and you get 1 rep. That's not enough. Research has even showed that. 5 max singles will not turn on growth. It's not, you have to get full recruitment and do a sufficient number of total repetitions. So, and then that's why triples aren't an efficient way to get it. A max triple at 90% will get you no more effective reps than a max set of 5. Well, actually, no, sorry. It will get you less. It will get you less.
Yeah.
Right? It would, to get 5, if you did, let's say you could do 5. Let's say you could do 5 all out sets of 5. You can, let's say you could. That would be 25. You would have to do 8 maximum triples to achieve that. If you did, and that's impossible. If you did sets of 8, close to failure, where you're getting 5 effective reps, in 5 sets of 8, you can get more. It would take you 9 sets of 3 or 8 sets of 3. The 5 sets of 8, less joint stress, much, much faster, right? Even in Brad's study, the 7x3 took forever because there were long rest intervals. It was like 21, it was like 30 minutes. The 3 sets of 10 was like 7.
Yeah.
Right? Set of 10, rest 2 minutes, set of 10, rest 2 minutes, set of 10, same growth stimulus. And I wrote this article years ago, and this will be a good place to end, that said, if you were going to pick a single repetition range for hypertrophy, it should be 5 to 8, because you will get essentially maximum recruitment from the first or second repetition, and you will get the maximum number of effective repetitions per set. And I would stand by that. Now, there are certain exercises that don't lend themselves to 5s. Good luck doing a lateral raise for a set of 5 or pec deck. Like, there are more, but if you're talking about physiology alone, right? Same thing. Hack squats for sets of 15 will make you either see God or hope he takes you, one or the other, right? So from in a purely effective rep, yeah, you could do 10 sets of 3 to get 30, and you're going to get injured, and it'll take you all day to do more than one exercise. Or you can do 3.
The shoulders just disappear. I like a little bit lighter to get sort of 10
and you see,
can grind out those final reps.
On top of the fact that for certain muscle groups, if it gets too heavy, your technique just goes to crap, right? And like lateral raises are a good example. Most people doing a heavy set of 5 barbell curl are using, but if you make them do a set of 12, they can actually do it strictly and get something out of it. So like, there are exercise specific issues in a practical sense. But yeah, if you were gonna, like, if all you did was like heavy sets of 5 on your compounds and sets of 8 on your isolations within a rep or two of failure and did a total of maybe 5 to 8 total sets, that would be, and so you go
I
back
think you
and
could get just the same amount of growth if you only did isolations.
oh, no, absolutely. And that's a completely
Hmm.
different
Yeah,
issue. I'm saying that if we're talking about a 5 to 8
yeah,
repetition range, you wouldn't want to use fives on isolations, eights on big compounds, depending on what it is, like on you'll be sucking wind. I would do it that way. And then it's just the final to sort of drive this home. Go back and look at, say, some of the early bulking systems. It would be 5 by 5 to 2 maximum sets of 5. There's 10 effect, and then you do like 8 sets of 8 to get the pump. But it
yeah.
wouldn't be, but it would be submaximal. And I bet if you math that out, right,
It's the same.
you're probably getting 2 or 3 effective reps on each set of 8, which is another 16 to 24 plus 10, 26 to 34.
There you go. Well, on that bombshell, let's leave it there, mate. So really great to catch up with you again.
Always.
Thank you for your knowledge. And I hear you whispering there might be another new book.
Yeah, there might be. There might actually be 2 more books coming in about 10 days.
Oh, really?
Um, one is a book. One is a booklet. Actually, it describes how I use the Ultimate Diet 2 to peak Larry. It lays out
Oh,
exactly how to peak that. And the other one for now will remain a secret, but let's just say that some of the topics we discussed earlier in this, in terms of maybe using some RFL days and some higher calorie days, let's
oh,
just say that it's somehow related to that and leave it at that.
exciting. I'll be looking out for that then.
Yep.
So
Yes, sir. All right,
beautiful.
Alan.
Thanks, man.